Oh yeah, they're back. Hi everyone, Sammy Flair here. Welcome back to Bolt Action, the series where, for the first time this season, I'm so happy about everything that happened this week! Oh, gosh, okay. I'm dizzy now. I definitely shouldn't have done that. Hang on. Why would I do that? What made me think that was a good idea? Okay, so I wasn't excited about everything that happened in this past week. There was a game that they lost in overtime again, which is becoming all too prevalent of a theme. There was some ugly defensive play, and thankfully that stuff is starting to get cleaned up. And there was some ugly goalie play, and thank heavens that Andrei Vasilevsky is back. But on the whole, the good severely outweighed the bad this week, so let's talk about it. This week started off with a 6-4 win over the Edmonton Oilers at home. It was followed up with a 5-4 victory in overtime against Boston. And to give you a sense for how I felt in the moment about that win against Boston, here's my reaction as soon as the game-winning goal happened. Oh, get in there, get in there. Yes, Lightning shoot, Lightning win. Finally get an overtime win, and they do it over division rival Boston. Oh, that feels so good. Screw the Bruins, screw-ins, I say. It's just, it's so good. Every time it's so good. The week was then rounded out with a 3-2 loss to the Winnipeg Jets at home in overtime before starting a road trip in Carolina and finishing out the season series against the Hurricanes and running over them 8-2. There were a lot of good things to come of each of these games this week, but I don't really want to get bogged down in any one game in particular, except for the Carolina game for a quick second. Because not only did the Carolina game mark the long-awaited return of Andrei Vasilevsky, hallelujah, but it was also a record-breaking night for the Lightning offense in 2 categories. From Dave Mishkin, the Lightning's 57.1 shooting percentage in the game is the highest recorded percentage since the NHL began tracking that statistic. But wait, it gets better. This from OptaStats on Twitter, and yes, it's still Twitter. The Tampa Bay Lightning become the first NHL team to score 8 or more goals on 15 or fewer shots on goal in a single game, regular season, or playoffs. Shots on goal were first officially tracked in 1955 and 56. Obviously a tremendous accomplishment for the team, but Nikita Kucherov also set a franchise record during that game by being the first player to score 6 points in a single game in Tampa Bay Lightning history. And Kucherov has been ridiculous all season long already, but in this game in particular, it felt like he was Kenshiro from Fist of the North Star, just staring down the Carolina bench going, actually, you're already dead. And considering that Braden Point also got a hat trick during this game, I'm pretty sure that in this tortured analogy, that makes Braden Point, Ray? Who is that other character? It was Ray, right? So between the two of them, they're walking up on Carolina goaltender Antti Raanta being like, the bits that I'm doing for these videos are getting increasingly physical, and I was not prepared for that. But apart from the Carolina win, this week also gave us the Lightning's first win in overtime. Thank goodness that monkey is now off of their back. And it also gave us a 3-game win streak, which helped them keep up with basically that point per game playoff pace that they were trying to keep up with in anticipation for Vasilevsky's return. And since we're on that topic, let's revisit that idea of 12-10 that I talked about from a few videos back. The basic idea is that for every 10 games that you play, you would like to get 12 points in the standings. That puts you on pace for 96 points at the end of the season, and in most seasons, 96 points is going to get you into the playoffs. In their first 10 games of the season, the Lightning got 11 points, and in this most recent 10-game segment, they got 12 exactly. 5 wins, 3 losses, and 2 overtime losses. And it feels only right to do a little bit of a debrief of those first 20 games. After all, the player that we were waiting to come back in Andrei Vasilevsky came back in game number 21. So with that in mind, were the first 20 games of this season a success? Did they accomplish what I think they wanted to do while they waited for Vasilevsky to return? If we're counting up and taking a cumulative look at those 12-10 segments, then yeah, they're still 1 point behind because they got 23 points in their first 20 games. And yes, if the season ended after those 20 games, they would be in a playoff spot. They'd be the road team against the Florida Panthers. But I feel like maybe the best comparison we can make is where were the Lightning after 20 games in last season? Through the first 20 games of last season, the Lightning were 12-7-1 with 25 points and fourth in the Atlantic. Through the first 20 games of this season, the Lightning are 9-6-5 with 23 points, tied for third in the Atlantic. So they're 1 point off a 96-point pace, and they're only 2 points worse this season than they were last season, all while missing their all-world goaltender and Andrei Vasilevskiy. Yeah, I think these first 20 games have been a success. I feel like the biggest mark on their report card for these first 20 games is the 5 overtime losses, right? If you get 1 or 2 of those back, all of a sudden you have 1 or 2 more points in the standings. It doesn't make a huge difference in the standings right now, but you're at least keeping a better pace with where you want to be towards the end of the season. You are closer to where you were at this point of last season. And it just feels like those were the biggest missed opportunities along the way. Yes, defense has been a tremendous concern. Yes, allowing so many high danger scoring chances has been a big concern. Allowing so many turnovers has been a big concern. Allowing so many goals directly as the result of turnovers has been a tremendous concern. But I asked a question in my last video, and I feel like we may have gotten our answer, but we're only 1 game in, so maybe not. I asked the question that when Andrei Vasilevskiy returns, will the team play differently in front of him than they did Jonas Johansson and Matt Tompkins? I attempted to make the point, and I don't know how successfully or unsuccessfully I actually managed to do it, but I was attempting to convey that when you are in that position, whether consciously or unconsciously, when you recognize that there is a gap somewhere on your team, you're going to play different. You're going to do whatever you can to try to fill in those gaps, even if it's less natural for you. And you're not going to be firing on all cylinders for the things that you do really well. Look, we all recognize Jonas Johansson, Matt Tompkins, they are not Andrei Vasilevskiy. There are basically no other goalies in the league that are Andrei Vasilevskiy. That's actually how being a human being works. Johansson and Tompkins, they were doing the best with the opportunity that they had. They were trying to do the best that they could with the impossible task that they were given, and the mileage eventually started to show, especially for Johansson in that Edmonton game. Not on every single goal, but on most of them, especially this one. That is Derek Ryan, shorthanded might I add, being hounded by Steven Stamkos and Braden Point on a breakaway, and Derek Ryan doesn't even really get a shot on it. He just kind of guides this puck in the general direction of Jonas Johansson, and it goes in. That's a stinker. Oof. Oh! Now, again, we've only seen 1 game of Vasilevskiy's return. We've only seen 1 game of how the team might play in front of him. So we don't have a huge data set to take from and say, okay, this is probably how we should approach the rest of the season. But from this 1 game that we do have to look at, it looks promising. They limited high danger chances. They limited turnovers. They limited clean looks at Vasilevskiy just to try to, ease him back into the game. But the side effect, the result of what those things do for you is the offense was freed up. The offense was freed up to just let loose, hence why they scored 8 goals against the Carolina Hurricanes. 14 shots, by the way. Have I mentioned that? It's on 14 shots. Obviously, not every game is going to look like that one. You're not going to beat everybody by 6 goals. You're not even going to beat everybody the rest of the way. You're going to lose games. It's more to the point that if that's the style that they continue to play in front of Vasilevskiy, then they're going to look more and more like the world beaters that they were in 2 straight cup runs, rather than a tired crew, a crew with a bunch of turnover in the personnel that's trying to redefine itself and hold on to this core. They're going to look like a legitimate cup contender again if they continue to play like that. As far as Vasilevskiy himself, I thought he looked good during that game. He stopped 22 of 24, and neither of the goals that he let in was I sitting there and thinking, you should probably have that one back. Carolina earned both of those goals. They beat Vasilevskiy rather than him shaking off rust or just letting in some stinkers. But the good news is that Vasilevskiy is returning when the team definitely needs him. During this third segment of 10 games, games 21 through 30, the Lightning play 7 games on the road. First one's already out of the way, going to Carolina. Coming up, they still have to go to Colorado, to Arizona, Dallas, Nashville, Seattle, and Vancouver. And that's a lot of road games in a few different time zones. But if there's any goalie that I want in net for a road trip like that, I definitely want Andrei Vasilevsky. Now, is he back at his prime? I don't know. Again, we're going to figure it out as we go. But as of right now, the future does look promising. I want to quickly bring this up before I wind down the video, and this is born out of a discussion that I was having with my friend Patrick the other day. If you've been following the NHL for any period of time, you've probably heard of the rule of Thanksgiving. The rule of Thanksgiving basically states, historically speaking, that 77% of teams who are in a playoff position at the American Thanksgiving holiday will make the playoffs at season's end. This graphic courtesy of Data Driven Hockey on Instagram. And as you can see, Tampa Bay Lightning sitting at 4th in the East. And as I said earlier, if the playoffs ended right after Thanksgiving, they would be the road team against the Florida Panthers in the first round. If I was to try and speculate right now which of these teams currently in a playoff position may miss the playoffs by season's end, in the East, I'm probably taking Washington and maybe Detroit, and West, I'm taking St. Louis and Seattle, but who knows at this point. I think, though, that as far as the Atlantic is concerned, as far as the Tampa Bay Lightning are concerned, if they keep on playing like this, they're going to make the playoffs. It's just more a matter of, will they get that 2 or 3 spot? Catching Boston seems a little out of reach right now, but who knows what will happen there. Or are they going to get one of the 2 wildcard spots? And spoiler alert, at least for me, I think both wildcards this season are coming out of the Atlantic. So we'll see what ends up happening. There's a lot of hockey left to play. The Lightning still have 61 more games to go. Anything can happen in that time frame. But at least as far as the first 21 games are concerned, where we are right now, I don't know that you can really be disappointed as a Lightning fan. Yes, you can nitpick and say, oh, some of those overtime losses should have been wins, and you'd probably be right. And yeah, some of the defensive struggles probably shouldn't be a thing, and they should be better than that. And yes, you're probably right about that as well. But taken as a whole, the first 21 games of this season, I'm pretty pleased with where they are. And that's a pretty positive note to end on, but I'm going to take it one step further and go ahead and give a player shout out here. And you pretty much know where this is going already. Nikita Kucherov, fresh off of that 6-point night against the Hurricanes, now is the league leader in points at 35. Next closest to him is Quinn Hughes at 32. And he's also the league leader in goals at 15. Kyle Connor, Austin Matthews behind him at 14 apiece. And as if that wasn't good enough, Kucherov is tied for the 4th most points through 20 games since the 2003-2004 season. And that is some pretty good company to be on a list with. Connor McDavid 3 times, Leon Draisaitl twice, your teammate Steven Stamkos is on there, legendary Peter Forsberg is on there. If you're not already convinced that Kucherov is having a legendary season, I hope this highlights just how unstoppably good he has been through his first 20 games of this season. Let's look ahead at the games that I will be covering in next week's video. The Lightning will continue their road trip with back-to-back games against the Colorado Avalanche and the Arizona Coyotes on the 27th and 28th before coming home for a lone home game against the Pittsburgh Penguins on November 30th. Colorado has been on a heater as of late. Arizona and Pittsburgh have decidedly not. So I don't truly know what to expect, but I'm hopeful that you get 2 out of those 3 games. Obviously, all 3 would be great, but if you're going to get 2, let's at least make it a good 2. Please beat Colorado. Please beat Colorado. That is going to do it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for giving me just a little bit of your time. I hope that you had a wonderful Thanksgiving if you happen to celebrate. With all the December holidays coming up, I hope it's a fantastic end of the year for absolutely everyone, including you. But until I see you again, remember, go Bolts, and omae wa mou shinderu. NANI?